also chair of the Division I IWLCA Legislative Committee. Our committee is going to go through and introduce themselves and where they coach, and then we will get underway with our presentation. Go ahead, Meredith.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith Black. I'm the head coach at Marquette University. I've been here for 8 years, and I've been coaching for 16. So I've been through 16 recruiting cycles.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Coyne. I'm coaching right now at St. Francis. I have been in the business for a really, really, really long time and have been through the recruiting cycle many, many times. So that's it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsay Monday. I'm the head coach at USC. And I have been in the recruiting cycle for 14 years as an assistant and head coach.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Nilsson. I am the head coach at the University of Michigan. And I have been in the recruiting cycle for 9 years.
Hi, everybody. My name's Carrie Whitaker. I coach at Penn. I've been there for 10 years. And overall, I've been a college coach for 23 years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Woods. I'm the head coach at the University of Connecticut. I just finished my 10th year here and have 20 years of recruiting experience.
Hello, everybody. I'm Samantha Ekstrand. I serve as the legal counsel for the IWLCA, and really excited and happy that you all are here to join us. And I think we're going to start with Lindsay. Lindsay Monday, you ready to talk about why consider changing?
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, obviously the first thing to talk about is why, we consider changing the September 1 contact date. Obviously, recruiting is essential. It's essential for us as college coaches. It's essential for, the student athletes that we recruit and, our current players. And it's an incredibly important part of our jobs. And, this committee has analyzed this process for a long time and, has asked the NCAA for change, notably, to slow this process down. And I think, the goal of wanting to slow it down in the first place was to create these conditions for, timing and success. And, that means, being able to watch kids, as much as we can to really get a feel for these players. And I think, everyone probably can agree that at one point, the recruiting process was a little bit crazy, and, the ability to slow it down, to be able to see kids more, for more and more kids to get opportunities, because some kids develop later in the process. And that was really important to this group and to, our whole coaching body. And that process is really, really important. And, we completely understand the stress and anxiety of that process. I think, we as coaches feel that and go through that. But, we just kind of mentioned our experience collectively, on this committee. We have over 160 years of experience that, kind of got us to, our decision. And we put a lot of time and thought and honestly put the 22 class first. We want to provide them with opportunities. We want to, be able to make this process, just that, a process, and to be able to watch kids. And we just lost so much time, obviously over the spring and summer. And so, our collective experience spent a lot of time discussing all of the pros and cons and how we could kind of move forward with this. And so, that is, changing the date was what we came up with. I think there was really no other way that we could move forward as a group to really give the 22s and give, ourselves as coaches and give our current players, really the best experience and the best ultimate experience at wherever they choose to go to school.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the NCAA recruiting calendar, just so everyone understands some of the terms that we're using tonight, how they apply to recruiting, and how we got here. So a dead period is a term that the NCAA uses a lot. And basically what that means is, as it pertains to Division I, no camps or clinics can be conducted, no attending tournaments, games, no in-person visits whether that's a home visit, a high school visit, also no in-person visits on campus. So you can't come to a campus, take a tour, and meet with a coach. You are not permitted to come on an official visit or an unofficial visit. So basically, it's called a dead period because pretty much everything is dead with the exception of phone calls. We can still make phone calls. We can still have, correspondence with recruits. So in other words, we could still email them, send them stuff in the mail. That's permissible as long as it is a permissible recruiting contact period. So as everyone knows, we are in an extended dead period right now. This was not something our coaches organization moved for, in the sense that this was imposed by the NCAA for all of Division I, and this started in March of 2020, and it has been extended currently through the end of August. So this goes across all sports throughout the entirety of the division. At this point, like you, we are currently waiting for the NCAA's decision as for what's going to happen with September and the rest of the fall as it pertains to a dead period. A lot of times people want to know why has this been made a dead period? And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think the number one thing that was important to the NCAA Council is that they made consistent recruiting rules for all sports, all states, everyone. So regardless of where your state was in terms of quarantine and COVID, you didn't have an inherent advantage over another state that was really sort of in the red, so to speak. And then they also wanted to make it equitable across all sports so that they put everyone into a dead period at the same time. Obviously, this was done out of concern for caution, safety, avoiding large gatherings. It allows coaches, I think this was another reason that they cited, it allows college coaches to focus on our own student athletes, on our teams that are going to be returning to campus in the fall, and really putting our time and energy into that. I think the other thing that's really important here is that many of us are in a travel ban right now. I speak for many coaches on this call that if I wanted to go recruiting right now, I could not. I would have to apply for permission to travel and get approval, which would be denied. There's no money right now for recruiting, and there is no travel that's being permitted. So that's not just for coaches, that is in many places a university-wide ban. So a dead period is going to come up a lot tonight, and that's how you can kind of understand it. It basically just shuts down your ability to evaluate, to contact in person, and to recruit on your campus. Phone calls are allowed, emails are allowed.
So over the course of the last few months, this committee has been meeting once a week to really discuss the impact of the coronavirus on recruiting, and we've really tried to look at it from a holistic approach. We've tried to take our selves back, or take a step back from our own situations. We would love to be working, we would love to be recruiting right now. Obviously, we've had to take a look. This pandemic has been devastating to so many people all across the country, and the way it's impacted recruiting has been significant. As you can see on the slide, we have not been able to recruit in person for the past 6 months, and that also means we have not been able to see you, but you've also not been able to play in front of us. And I think those opportunities that we've lost to come and sit on the sidelines, for many teams, our lists remain from what we had back in November of 2019, all those months ago. So it's really impacted the ability for us to see you all as players. And I think the one thing to think about, there's been a lot of things filmed, and I'm sure a lot of coaches have tried to watch that, but the in-person live evaluations are extremely important to what we do. And I think that's for players to understand as well. You see so much that goes on in a live in-person recruiting opportunity that you just don't get on film. And that can, sometimes really hurt. And as a coaching body, we feel that that's really, really important. The fall is obviously uncertain as well of what's going to happen with the November tournaments. The NCAA has not come out with the dead period extension yet, but that may well happen, as well as obviously the safety of traveling and hosting large tournaments in November is also very, uncertain there. so just kind of, it brings the question of when and where and how have this group of athletes been able to really been truly evaluated in a proper way, not on film. I think there has been an overwhelming sense of pressure been discussed. I've spoken to a lot of club coaches, a lot of college coaches, and both parties are feeling pressure. And I think what we're really trying to do is take that pressure off by giving, both parties more time, athletes the opportunity to have a high school season that you lost this year, the opportunity to spend more time on developing your game, and really providing the opportunity to be seen. So we're not trying to forget about this class at all, but we're trying to provide more opportunity by extending the process a little longer for you all to develop, play high school, play some summer, and really give everybody more opportunities to get in front of more coaches as we go along.
Muted again. This is Kirsten Kimmel from Duke, and part of what I'm going to talk about right now is just what the reality is for us as coaches and what life is going to be like on our campuses. I think first of all, it's important to understand, like, we're probably at this point all, and you all may feel this because you have been playing some this summer. There may be this fatigue with COVID, which I think we all understand, but the reality is, most of the coaches on this call and our colleagues at other programs and other schools have not been on campus all summer. People are just starting to get back. Kids are just starting to move in, I think even this week. And so coaches are getting to see their own players for the first time since March when the seasons were canceled. And also on our campuses, for a lot of our schools, there is no fall sports. Like there's no football, there's no field hockey, there's no volleyball, or what those fall sports are having to endure. It's going to be very limited. Conference only schedules, traveling in pods, traveling regionally. It's going to be very different. Likewise, on some campuses, not all students are going to be able to return to their campuses. There's a number of schools who had either plans to bring everybody back, and now they're reversing course and either going, half virtual or only bringing a few classes of students back. And then some campuses like Georgetown University just announced that they were going all virtual for this fall, which means there's no fall sports for them. And those kids aren't even going to be on their campuses in the fall. Again, I'd already talked about the fact that we've not seen our teams since the middle of March when our seasons were canceled. And for those of us that are going to be fortunate enough to have their teams on campus this fall, it is going to be navigating a very different and new reality on our campuses, just in terms of the protocols that we are going to have to navigate. For instance, a lot of schools are making their students who will be living on campus sign contracts that they will not travel out of the region that they are in until they leave campus for Thanksgiving. And that is to protect the students who are on campuses and the staff and faculty from going out and potentially contracting COVID and bringing it back to campus. Likewise, a lot of schools, particularly I think the Power 5 schools, there's going to be very rigorous testing and very limited work that we're going to be able to do with our teams come this fall. Practice, yes, but like a lot of schools are not going to even be able to play outside competition. They'll be lucky if they get to practice. And practices may look very different. They may be small groups. You maybe will have some people who will be able to do full practices, but it's going to be very, very different. Likewise, all of us are facing budget cuts, which means our ability to recruit and or host recruits on campus, if that's even allowed, will be very, very limited. And from what we've all been told, it is likely that none of our schools are going to be willing to host official or unofficial visits on their campuses this fall. And again, the idea is that they are trying to protect the current students and student athletes, professors, faculty, and staff, and they aren't going to allow visitors to campus in this fall semester at the very least. And then last but not least, it's a dead period. So for right now, we don't know if the NCAA is going to extend that dead period. It is likely that they will, but we don't know. We'll probably find something out next week when the Division I Council meets and has these discussions. but there are a lot of schools and there's a lot of pressure to continue the dead period, but then at the same time also lift the dead period. And so the reality is we don't know if we'll even be able to go off campus and recruit and evaluate this semester. Likewise, we don't feel like it's likely we will be able to host people for visits as well.
Hi, I'm Tracy Coyne. I'm going to talk to you about how we arrived at this decision, the process that we went through. And just as a reminder, we are a leader in the field of recruiting in terms of establishing a fair and equitable process for everyone. It's one of our core values, and I think it's what drove us in this process to come to the conclusion that July 1st was the best contact date. And we do have consensus from the coaching body. 76% of the Division I coaches support the decision to move to July 1st. And I think that should give you a lot of confidence that this process will work for you and that we're putting you in the forefront of our minds, as well as the health and well-being and the safety of the recruits, as well as the current teams and the coaches. So we've been carefully considering this proposal for months. I mean, we started meeting in March, pretty much weekly, to discuss the pros and cons, to make sure we were doing our due diligence. We considered many, many options. I know we've had a lot of emails. Liz Robinshaw's gotten a ton of emails. And there isn't anything in the emails that we haven't already considered extensively. We considered keeping it the same. We considered moving to December 1st. We considered July 15th, just making phone calls, but not making offers until August 1st. We considered even pushing back the contact date for a full year to September 1st of 2021. So after thoroughly vetting those ideas, discussing it individually with each conference in a Zoom call, getting ideas from the member coaches. We also had a full Zoom call with all the coaches. We ultimately decided that July 1st is the best date because it optimizes our opportunity to evaluate you, and it gives you the optimal opportunity to keep working on your game, to get better, and to hopefully when our campuses open up, to have a chance to come to the campus, attend some camps and clinics, get to know us better. We'll have a chance to get to know you. You should feel relaxed about this opportunity because film is not a supplement for live evaluations. It's a substitute. Or film is a supplement, it's not a substitute. Like, we need to see you in person. We need to get a feel for who you are on the field. And we've been denied that opportunity. And so this is recruiting is a very important part of our job. And so we feel good about the decision. We feel like it's the best of both worlds for both of us. We think if next spring, hopefully things will be back to normal. We'll have a chance to come and see you in your high school, evaluate some of your scholastic competitions. We'll see some early summer tournaments, and then start getting to know you on July 1st. We'll have a chance to get to know each other, and your process will start. It's not a race to the finish. It's just the beginning where you're going to see where the interest lies, who calls you, what schools are interested in you that match your academic and athletic pursuits. And it will be, we feel, a very positive experience. And so I just wanted to reiterate, I guess, that this wasn't a decision that we took lightly. We surveyed the membership, we discussed it, and we have experience with the July 1 contact date, and we know that it works. And so I know you have anxiety. We don't want you to feel that way. We want you to feel confident in our decision-making, where our heart is, how much we believe in you, and how much we know that if you calm down and you take some time, that when we come to see you next spring, you're going to look really great. And your game will be at its best because you're going to be practicing. You're going to have normal practices with your club team, and things will be back to where we want them to be. So I think that's good.
Real quick, Tracy, I just want to add in something that I think is very important for everybody to understand. When, Tracy talked a lot about the fact that we discussed so many different dates and so many different could we do this? Could we do that? And ultimately, you know, if someone were to ask us, well, why not like December 1st as a first contact date? And, you know, our answer to that was, number one, we don't even know if fall tournaments will happen this fall for you guys. Number two, we don't know if we're going to be able to recruit at those tournaments if they take place. And three, almost all of our campuses are going to close before Thanksgiving, meaning nobody will be on campus from Thanksgiving until January, whenever our campuses reopen. And then in fairness to our own players who all missed their own season last year, we felt like opening up recruiting in January or February is really, really doing them a huge disservice. All of you are trying to get to this level and play. And, you know, I think part of our discussion that when we initially moved the recruiting date to September 1st was that we wanted to, like, before we were kind of recruiting all year, and some of our coaches felt like it was taking away from their current teams and that we were focusing too much on the kids who weren't even in our programs yet at the expense of the kids who were in our current programs. And so if you put yourself in our shoes going into January or February of next year, we will have had very limited fall ball with our kids, the hopes of having a 2021 season. And we will have a lot that we need to accomplish in 3 weeks of preseason before our first weekend that we can play. And so we felt like, you know, quite honestly, it would be a real disservice to our current players to try to initiate, you know, this big recruiting process with a lot of kids at the beginning of 2021, when we need to focus on our teams. They need to be our priority at that time of the year. So sorry, Tracy, I just wanted to kind of jump in and kind of talk through the, like, why, like, we debated a lot of different start dates for this. And then quite frankly, we also talked about June, but in fairness to you, a lot of you are still in school in June. We have kids in New York and New Hampshire and some of the places in New England that are in school through the middle to end of June. And we felt like if we eliminated June, then everybody would be out of school and on the same page, out of school, in club ball, come July 1st, 2021. So
I add one more thing too, just as a caveat. This is more directed to the parents, but we are the experts in our field. And I think this is a business decision that wasn't made lightly. And I think the questioning of the business decision undermines our credibility and the integrity of the committee, as well as the consensus. This is not a big school versus small school decision. This is consensus of the body that, given the current circumstances, we're in a global pandemic. July 1 puts us all in the best position to successfully recruit and optimize opportunities to evaluate and see you. And so I think to give us the credit for knowing our business and being able to successfully navigate a really challenging time would be appreciated. Good.
So this is Carrie Whitaker again, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the question. So why change September 1? Obviously, some of these points have been alluded to, but I'm going to kind of go through these bit by bit. Here's the truth. Coaches need more time to evaluate in person and make informed decisions. You know, video is okay. Here's how I use video. I'm going to be real transparent here. Here's how I use video. Video is something where when I look at it on my computer, an email comes through, oh, okay, you know what? It will be worth our time to go over to, you know, field 58 and go see that game of a team that we've never heard of, because I just watched this kid's video and she shows some promise. No coach on this committee would make an offer based on video alone. I don't think there would be many coaches in Division I who would make an offer on video alone. Lindsay earlier talked about 160 years of collective combined recruiting experience. And Tracy just referenced the experience, the knowledge, and the expertise that we have in this. We know what we're doing. We know how this process works. It's not just seeing a kid on video. Live, in-person evaluations make all the difference. Why do I say that? Well, here's the truth. Here's the truth. If we called kids on September 1, I think all the coaches on this call can agree on maybe 30 kids that they would want and that they would want to call. 30 kids. The rest of this class, and this is not the 22s, this is every year, the rest of you guys need to be seen and seen again and seen again, so that we can take what we saw in November with our own eyes and our evaluations that we had on you in November, and then we can come around and we can see how you grew through your spring season, which didn't happen. We can see how you've improved. We can see how you've been passed by. We can see how you've plateaued. We can make those comparisons, and that's what helps us as coaches really know and really feel confident about the type of athlete we're recruiting. That, as coaches, helps us really believe in who we put on our list and who we're going to call. And that is so important. That is such an important part of this process. So while we'll look at this video, and it will be, as Coyne said, a supplement, it is not a substitute. So that's really important. Making an informed decision as a coach, this is our job. This is one of the most important things that we do. This is how we build our programs, our teams, our pursuit of championships, and our team culture. So this is important. We want to see you. We want to see how you've grown as an athlete. We want to see how you've improved. We want to see what you can do, and we want to see that in person. Video doesn't show it all. I love to see when you come off the field after you've had a bad shift or whatever it is, and watch you walk to the sideline, because I want to see how you respond. We want to see you. In-person visits are a huge component of this recruiting process. I keep seeing these comments and these emails about, like, we want the calls, we want the relationships, we want to hear from the coaches, we want to know who's interested. Those are an important prong, but such an important part of it is these in-person visits, and they're not going to happen this fall. It's important for you guys, parents, to see us, meet us, talk to us, see what it's like. It's important for you guys as a family to come to a practice, to check it out, to see what you see with your own eyes. And it's important for your daughters to see, like, how do they fit in on the team? Can they see themselves here? Will they be happy? Are these their people? And then I think the other part of it is, this is a screen for us for who we feel like is a right fit within our program. This is how we can choose if someone really could fit in with us and is someone who we would like on our team. And this is also how we decide, sometimes there's a kid who we just can't see here and she's not the right fit. So those are important pieces that are just off the table right now. And as a coaching group, we value them. Coyne had referenced 76% of us agreed on this. 87% thought it should be changed in some way. You know, we took years. We debated the restraining line for years. This, we were pretty much all on board on real quick. Competitive equity is just a value within our organization for all involved, and that will help accomplish this. I think that one speaks a little bit for itself. We don't feel like some schools should get an advantage because of where they are in terms of their protocols. And then as we're all aware, with all of these changes that have come out of COVID, coaches do need to assess their roster needs, given the extra year of eligibility that has been granted by the NCAA from the cancellation of the season, scholarship allocations, resources, all kinds of things right now are in flux and are changing. And I think you would want the same thing as parents if your daughter was on our team, that we assess the roster needs first, building out from the team that we have. And that's an important piece in the recruiting process. And then there's this notion out there that July 1 is too late, is so late, is way late. And the fact is, that's not true. For years, July 1 was actually the start date for recruiting contact, and that's when it all started. And later on in this call, you're going to hear from some pretty accomplished players who got their first phone call on July 1. I would like to also mention that all of football recruiting pretty much happens at the start of their senior year. And for many, many years, and still a little bit for the throwbacks in there, it's December official visits of their senior year that they use to make their decisions. So to say that July 1 is late is just not true, especially considering that it's not that we don't want to call you on September 1, but we want the chance to see you and to see how, see the type of athlete and the type of person and the type of family that we're recruiting.
So throughout this process, we've, as we kind of announced it and started discussions on it, we've heard in many different forms a bunch of myths about like kind of why we're doing what we're doing and why we sent in this proposal and why we're voting on this proposal. And so we wanted to dispel myths on this call as well. So there'll be a few that we've heard more than once that we just want to dispel. And the very first one I think we've heard probably the most is that we don't care about the 2022s, or it's, you know, you guys have been through so much with COVID, which you have, which everybody has, and that we're just like, it's just hitting you harder with bad news and whatnot. And in fact, like, we couldn't care more about you. Like, this is our way of showing how much we do care about your class. And we want you to know that you're at the forefront of these decisions. And in the best way possible is how can we make it the best process for you and for us, of course, too, but for this 2022 class. And so, gosh, we care so much about you guys, and we really want you to have the best process. And just so you know, like, we all need a 2022 class. Every coach, I can speak for every coach in Division I to say, whether you need one or you need 20, we all need 2022s. We all will be recruiting 2022s. Like, this is not our way to slack off and say we're not doing it, or COVID, because of COVID, we're just going to skip that class. Like, absolutely not. We care so much about getting a good class that we're doing this so we can get the best class for all of us, and you can find the best fit for you. And with our experience, we believe that this is the best way to do that.
So another myth that has come up and this has just come through emails and questions and social media, that 22s will only have 60 days to be recruited. That is absolutely false. The hope is that when the dead period opens up, we will have opportunities to evaluate in person, and that will happen maybe this fall, but hopefully in the spring with your seasons, early in the summer with club tournaments and camps and clinics throughout that time as well. So the 60-day window, there's no window. I think if you ask, again, everyone on this call, and probably most Division I coaches, my time frame is when I'm done recruiting the class, I'm done recruiting the class. If it's 6 months, it's 6 months. If it's 3 months, it's 3 months. It's whatever, when we finish, we finish. So the 60-day piece, just as an educational, just to kind of give everyone the info, July 1st to September 1st is where 60 days is coming from. And July 1st, it might be the first time we can call, but that doesn't mean that that's the first time we're watching you play. It's not a race. We want to have an opportunity to get to know you. And just as September 1st, at this point, is the start date for the 23s, that doesn't mean the door shuts for 22s, okay? We will not shut the door on the 22s until our classes are finished. And I know Carrie talked about this a little bit, and it's been alluded to in the past. We are on our 3rd year of having this September 1 contact date. Prior to that, it was like the wild, wild west, because you guys could call us. We were recruiting 2 and 3 classes at one time. So we are fully capable of doing that. And this is a pandemic. This is a very unique situation, and we'll be prepared to do it again. And most times, from my experience and from other coaches, especially on this call, we're often watching 2 classes at one time, especially towards the end of that process. So again, it is not a race. We are not going to open and shut the doors within 60 days for your class, especially when we talk about how important on-campus visits are and spending time with you face-to-face, getting to know you, getting to know your family. There has been a lot of talk. There's so much information to still be found out about what do we do with the 23s. Again, this is an unprecedented time. So we felt the need, and we feel it very strongly, that we need to take into consideration the big picture, and that discussion is there about what do we do with the 23 class. At the end of the day, whether you're a 22 or 23, whoever you are, we want to have quality people. We want to have a quality class, and we are going to take the time we need to do that. I can certainly say that the 60-day window for the majority of Division I for sure is not going to be sufficient. We will certainly go into the fall with that.
So another thing that has, been coming up and people, we've been hearing is that we have these, really in-depth and educated lists that we're working off of, ready to roll on September 1, like we normally would. And again, I think if we need to remember back that the last time we really got to see people play was in November. So, the majority of us have, well, I would say all of us have a list from what we saw in November, and then a little bit of the supplemental film. But it's, the list that we have, where a lot of us are probably looking at the same, people that we saw in the fall and noticed in the fall, and then are competing against each other. But at the end of the day, I know I can speak for myself in that I haven't seen about 90% of this class. And so I have a list based on what I've seen, which is really, really limited. And even in the film I've watched, it's really, really limited because some club teams haven't been able to get us film yet. And some tournaments haven't been able to get us that film yet. And we haven't been able to watch it yet because as head coaches, there's been so much else on our plates that we've had to deal with through all of this. And I think, to assume that we have these really educated lists ready to go like in previous years is just simply not true. And as Kerry mentioned, it's a smaller than it usually is at this point in time. And I think what you've got to think about as players and as parents is giving yourselves more time is going to help. It's going to help us increase our lists, see you as you become more developed young women, and not just work off of maybe the 10% that we've seen at this point in time, but actually, do our due diligence and see those teams maybe in non-traditional areas that we didn't get to see in the fall, and see some of the teams that maybe, we would have got to see this summer because we only went and saw our typical teams in the fall. So for some of those non-traditional areas or teams outside of the area that your favorite school might typically recruit out of, I think we've got to think bigger picture and give yourselves that opportunity to be seen.
So the next thing that we've been, hearing a lot is that there's no harm in allowing conversations and meetings, if coaches, in this situation, if we just kept September 1, what is the harm in being able to create a relationship? And, we hear you with that, but I think in our collective experience, the reality is that would not happen. People would commit, without seeing all of the things that we have talked about. We haven't had evaluations, you wouldn't be meeting the team, you wouldn't be seeing the campus most likely. And again, I think the reality is that commitments will happen. I think when we go back to, how, it became the wild, wild west when we could communicate to anyone. That's why we wanted to slow it down, because people were making, decisions that, weren't in the best interests of, the recruit, of the program, of the current players. And, quite frankly, I do think people would move forward because everyone's anxious right now. And we all, admit that we're anxious and this process is crazy. But, I think we just have to sort of check that the reality could be much different than just as simple as creating a relationship. It would be great if we could do that, but I think mistakes would happen, and that's we do not want that to happen for recruits, for our programs. We want players to be happy at the schools that they choose, and we really feel like mistakes would happen. And then secondly, to Hannah's point of not having really a great list right now, I truly believe that if we kept September 1st, a lot of players could get strung along, because right now we have to call because our lists are not robust, because we've only seen, maybe a few players, we're going to have to call a lot more people. And I think that's going to be more confusing than we all, maybe expect for these student athletes, because they're going to have these giant lists and all these, calls from very, very different universities, maybe different divisions. And I think people may get strung along in the process and even more confused than we may think, because as coaches, we haven't had these live in-person, evaluations to actually create the reliable list that we've been talking about. So as great as it sounds in theory, I think the reality would be much different than that.
So what I hope that you really kind of been able to listen with an open mind. And I think one of the big themes that this committee really wants you to hear, and what I want you to hear as their attorney, is that recruiting is one of the most important aspects of their job. And they take it very seriously, and they want time to be able to do their job well. And they know how to do their job well because they've been doing it for a long time, and they've seen cycles that have not been great. They've seen cycles that have not been, healthy or helpful. And, the impact that COVID-19 has had on this process is very clear. And I think that to not make any adjustment at all, would be a big mistake. We also recognize this is a huge decision for you 22s who are on the call listening, and for your parents. This can be, where you go to college, and your college experience is a hugely important decision, and you deserve time to make it. You deserve more information and more of a chance to be seen in order to, to get a chance to even get the call. And I hope that it's very eye-opening to hear some of the best coaches in our business talk about that they don't have a list ready, like a reliable list with up-to-date data and evaluations, because they haven't been able to. Because I think people just want the call. Well, in order to have the call, you need the list to call. And so if they don't have the list ready, then that's going to really, have a negative effect on the process. And so when I look at the recruiting process and the importance of this decision and the importance of good information, I think it just makes a lot of sense. And again, we've been talking about it for a long time, since the dead period first started, and we started to realize that they were not going to get a chance to see you play in person, even if you have been out there playing. Some of you have and some of you have not. And I think the competitive equity piece that Carrie talked about applies not just to the coaches, the college coaches, but also to you as families and to student athletes. Some of you have had the luxury of being able to go and play, and some of you absolutely have not. And some of you recently have been banned from, traveling to other states. And so I think that this process of, is one about adapting and recognizing, the loss of time. What's at stake here? This idea that Lindsay just talked about of large lists, of getting a call and then not getting a follow-up because really you weren't meant to be on that list in the first place. Something that we haven't, talked a lot about that we see in other sports are decommitments. So you get the call, you get the offer, you commit, you buy the bumper sticker, you buy the sweatshirt, and then all of a sudden 6 months later you're dropped. And that absolutely happens in other sports. Or you sign up, you commit, you go there and you realize that's not the best match. And then you transfer or you're cut. And I think what the coaches here have realized, and coaches of women's sports in general have realized, is, mistakes in the recruiting process can cost them their jobs. And it is different than in men's sports. And I can say that because I work with different sports. And so this recruiting process to this group and to women's lacrosse is very important, and they want to get it right. And I do hope that you all listening respect that, to Tracy Coyne's point. This is their job, and they are trying to do it as well as they possibly can. And what they're asking for right now is more time to do it. What are other sports doing? And I understand why this is confusing. I think that the Division I NCAA manual is worse than the tax code. I mean, to understand, it's like what other sports are doing and all the different dates and whatnot. There are different rules. And there are sports who had a June 15th contact date and an August 1 visit date. The visits haven't been able to happen. Those commitments have happened. And what we've heard from colleagues, is that it's been a disaster. It's been a lot of pressure. It's been about making decisions they didn't feel like they were well equipped to make, but felt the time pressure to make it. And the biggest question that we've gotten is, why is men's lacrosse keeping September 1? And with respect to our brother sport, they're in a different boat, right? And they have different reasons why they have decided I mean, you'd have to ask them. My understanding, many of them are concerned about being furloughed, and they think if they're able to keep the recruiting piece alive and not postpone it, that will somehow have a beneficial effect on their jobs. I think going back to the bullet point above, in terms of large lists and disappointing calls and decommitments and transfers and cuts, that's a risk that the men are willing to bear right now. And I think this group has decided it's not fair to the 22s, and it's really not doing their job as well as they feel like they need to do in this really important process of recruiting. We were hopeful that conversations with the men would get them to understand or see and consider this. And those are still, that outreach is ongoing. But you know what? We respect if the men's lacrosse wants to keep their date and they feel ready and informed to make this decision, then that's their prerogative. People have talked about, is this discriminatory? I think it's discriminatory the other way, that somehow our women are being scrutinized because they're asking for more time to do their job well and compared to the men. You know, this isn't about targeting the 22s. This is not about targeting young women. This really is about taking a look at this important process and making smart decisions with it now, given the loss that we've had of time. No spring season, no summer season, and now likely no fall season. And so that's almost a whole year that these coaches have not been able to see you play 22s live in person, and all the reasons that they've gone through about how your process would be affected if it started now. And what we have learned, certainly once the gates of recruiting open, they're open and off we go, right? And there's no, it turns on and there's no, curtailing it or kind of, trying to bridle it. It just goes. And so that's why we are very deliberate about when it starts, and that's why these conversations have been ongoing. And not just within this group, but within the whole body. I do want to address real quickly, because it's come up in a question and some conversations about this hockey model, which was opening contact and then having offer dates, an offer date later. That is a model that's very new. If men's hockey is the only sport that has it, I'm not sure how they got it passed. They got it passed last year in 2019, where they have a start date of contact on January 1 of sophomore year, and then an offer date August 1. And it's the only place in the whole manual, the whole rule book, where the NCAA gives a nod or recognizes verbal offers. We have our eye on that. Initial feedback from coaches in that sport has not been favorable. But if there was a way that we could build the relationships and open the contact and then have an offer date, it was certainly something that we would consider. It did not seem like the right move right now. We have a model that we've developed. It's all contact on one date. It makes things very clear for our compliance people within our athletic departments. It makes it very clear for the lacrosse community. Once the gate's open, it's open. But that question has come up. And again, if we feel like in time that makes a lot of sense and that model is successful, then I think what you're hearing from this group is we're committed to looking into it, into exploring it, and then to building consensus and having conversation. If it makes sense, then we would do that. And the last message that I really want you to hear, and I know it's a hard one, but it's said with a lot of love and respect. This is not about, Christmas time getting the call on September 1. That is not what this is about, and I understand well the excitement and the buildup and the expectation and the feeling of working hard and earning and deserving it. It is not just about that. It is about this important process that these women and some men in our profession do for their job, and about doing it well and setting it up well to succeed. And the conditions for success do not exist now because the live evaluations haven't happened. There are huge question marks about the year, huge question marks about resources. And so I think we're going to have to just, absorb that and realize and look at the bigger picture as to, why this is so important, and have some respect for that.
Okay. This is Kirsten Kimmel from Duke, just kind of talking about what our next steps are and what happens next. And I just going to go off script for just a second, because I think it's important. Everyone's like, well, who's Sam Extrian? And she's our legal counsel. And she's a lawyer. So what does she know about coaching and lacrosse? And so I just want to really quick help everybody to understand that Sam played in college at a high level, also coached for 7 years at Duke with me. So she knows coaching. Her younger sister coached for a long time at Duke and Georgetown. Also, Sam is a parent. She's got a daughter who's a 2021 commit going to Georgetown. So she's been through this process. So I think it's important just so everybody understands you're not like, well, who's this lawyer person talking to us? Sam's got a lot of background, and it kind of kicks off the first thing that I'm going to talk about is that trusting the experience of this group. I think at the beginning of our presentation, we talked about the fact that we've got over 160 years, 160 recruiting cycles amongst all of us in this committee. And I think our committee is diverse. We represent small schools, big schools, East Coast schools, West Coast schools, Ivies, state schools. We're kind of all over the board. And I think it's important that everybody understand that there's been so much time and energy and thought that this group has put into kind of our next steps with this process. Right now, we expect to hear from the NCAA with regards to our proposal in mid-August. And I think at that time, I think the date for the Division I Council to meet is August 12th. But at that time, we will also likely hear about what the dead period, if the dead period will be extended. Quite frankly, I think what we're all hearing on our college campuses, given the state, the state of the COVID infection right now, it is probably going, and more importantly, with school getting, for those who are going to be going to school in person, everybody is going to be really focused on just getting the new school year started and trying to get fall sports started at schools that are going to be able to competing from a fall sports standpoint. I think important for you guys as players to understand that, we want you guys to continue to work hard and believe in your goals of playing at the next level, and really just focus on what you can right now, which is that hard work, your attitude, and your approach to being recruited. I think a lot of kids, and we've all, our inboxes are filled up every day with kids doing a really good job of communicating with us. It's really important. And I'll tell you that one of the things that we've gotten, some of the comments on some of our social media, as well as just some of the emails, with this a little bit of like boohoo, like, I'm going to lose my motivation if I don't get to kind of proceed with the recruiting process. And, quite frankly, I think the collective opinion of this group is that, and I would tell you probably most of our college coaches, is if moving September 1st makes you want to quit, then maybe playing at this level is really not the best thing for you. You're not cut out for it. And I just say that because, what we do is not rocket science, but it's hard and it's a big commitment. And, right now, what everybody's dealing with is way bigger than all of us. And it's especially bigger than the recruiting process. Again, we're all just, the coaches on this call, we're just trying to get back to our campuses and try to get our girls back and get their year off to some kind of normalcy. For those of us that are going to be fortunate to have some of their kids, if not all their kids, on campus this fall, but that's not even all of us. There's a lot of coaches in our coaching body who aren't even going to have their kids on campus this fall to be able to practice. So just remember that this is a much bigger thing that we're dealing with than just being recruited starting on September 1st. Parents, and again, I said that Sam is a parent. I am as well. I'm getting ready to send my daughter off to school tomorrow. She's going back to school, Wednesday, to start her sophomore year, and she plays at the college level. So look, I can understand and feel for where you are. And I have a 2022 son who's a baseball prospect, and it's hard right now. I get it. Your whole summer was turned upside down. It's, we don't know what the school year is going to look like. So my best advice to you is to be encouraging and supportive and help your child see the bigger picture. I think when my kids start whining about wearing a mask, or we can't do this, or we can't see these people, or I'm not going to, I have to put my big girl pants on as a parent and say no a lot. I've said no a lot during the lockdown and COVID, in an effort to be a good team player from a regional and national standpoint with regards to COVID, but also to protect my kids in terms of keeping them safe and healthy as well. And so I just want to encourage our parents who are listening in to do that as well. And then club coaches, you know, I think that you guys can really be a voice of reason right now and respect the rules that are in place. I know that a lot of us on this call as college coaches have had numerous conversations with you guys as club coaches, and I would just want to encourage you to continue to reach out to us, and I'm sure we will continue to reach out to you. But I think that you can be a real voice of calm and reason. And also, you know, I think do right by your kids. Have real honest conversations with your prospect, with the players in your program about where they should be aiming in terms of looking at schools. And likewise, take the feedback that the college coaches may give you in terms of, like, you know, where are kids on their list. I mean, we have to really respect, like, you know, in terms of, like, we're only allowed to have one-way conversations about kids. We need to respect that. We can't be asked, you know, well, where does she really sit on your list? We're not allowed to tell you. We can be very general, and just we ask that you respect those rules so that we can try to, you know, do our jobs to the best of our ability.
I just want to reiterate, or we as a committee want to reiterate, why July 1st is not too late. Some of you may know this, some of you may not, but I spent a long time at the University of Notre Dame coaching with the July 1 contact date, and some of the best players in the game and some of the best players that I recruited on July 1st. And the entire committee has experience with a July 1 contact date. I think that's why we feel confident. And I want to point out, not to embarrass anyone, Lindsay Monday, Hannah Nielsen, both recruited with the July 1 contact date. You can check out their stats. If you're not familiar with what they got done in the college game, then Google that. Meredith Simon Black played for me at Notre Dame. She was the first team All-American in Notre Dame history. You can Google her too if you want to. But she didn't make her official visit. We were just reminiscing until October. And so I think that having some perspective about how you can be successfully recruited on July 1st and that it's not too late will help you with some of the anxiety that you might be feeling. I think there's a little bit of a romanticized idea of what September 1, 2020 is going to be like, and it would not meet the expectation. Because as we've reiterated through this PowerPoint, it's just like, we haven't done our homework. We understand you've been working hard. We totally appreciate, you know, what you've been doing, but at the same time, there's still 6 to 9 months, or you're still going to be recruited earlier than the non-athlete. You will figure it out. We'll help you figure it out. We're here for you. We want you to be successful because we want to be successful too. So I think it's just, you know, understanding that we're in this together. And that we want you to have the best possible process, and we believe that pushing the contact date back to July 1 is the right thing to do. I also wanted to say too that we're a very thoughtful, strategic group. We have a lot of merit with the NCAA because we've done our due diligence. We have taken a leadership role when it comes to recruiting, and that's why we're confident that this legislation will pass. So you can pray, or you can talk about it, or you can Snapchat about it. You can do whatever you want and hoping that it's not going to pass. But at the same time, I think if it can work, it has worked, it will work. Let's just be in it together and be positive about what the process is going to be like, and know that we believe in you, and that we want it to be a good experience. Good. Great.
And then last, I created the PowerPoint. I tried to incorporate the questions that had been sent in to Liz Robershaw on the admin account. There were a few that I just wanted to make sure we reiterate, and then Liz can wrap it up for us. You know, have we thought about the players? I hope that's clear now. I hope that's crystal clear. We have absolutely thought about the players. They're at the forefront. We understand that you might be disappointed with, you know, with the conclusion and with the rationale and whatnot, but I do want you to hear, you know, that's fundamental. What about allowing conversations? I talked about the hockey model already. You know, we have our eye on all the different models. I just hope that you can hear a lot of thought went in to what we picked and why we picked it. And as for the lines that are up on the screen, I have no idea. I'm the one running the PowerPoint, so I apologize for what looks like kids' scratches, blue and yellow on the questions. But Liz, you want to take these next couple?
Sure. This definitely came up, and it's very thoughtful. What if COVID prevents evaluations in 2021? if that's the case, we're dealing with a lot bigger things than lacrosse evaluations. We will have to deal with what's going on in higher education. We'll have to deal with what's going on in your high school educations, whether schools are open, whether they're not. So if that happens, we'll adjust and we'll handle it just like we do in a game. We adjust and we handle and we adapt. So, we are all hoping that does not happen. Hopefully everyone's wearing their masks and being smart and being diligent, and we can get through this. And the scientists are doing their work. So we're going to hope that doesn't happen. If it does, we'll adjust. And then I know Katie mentioned this. How long does a typical recruiting process take to complete a class? As long as it takes. You are seeing, you see some people go through it for a week. Some people know who they want. They are only bringing in 3 kids, and it gets done within 1 to 2 weeks. It can be that quick. Some take 2 years. You're seeing recently, whether it's other sports or even throughout our divisions, 1, 2, and 3, you're seeing recent people committing in the class of 2021 that have just made their decisions recently. So there's no timetable. And that's something that every one of the coaches here is so thoughtful about, both their process and yours. Is that a lot of comments that have come in deal with, well, what should I do when I hear of my teammates committing, or that the service academies are committing players? Yes, they do not go by these restrictions. They have different rules. That's their process. It's not yours. So again, breathe. Like every coach will tell you, breathe, take the time to do your process, take the time to do your research, and the process will go as long as it goes. So don't stress over that, because to be honest, it's kind of something that it's wasted energy, where you can focus on your academics, you can focus on your game, you can focus on your health and your family, and you can focus on being a kid. So let's focus on those things. I do know there have been multiple questions. Believe me, my email has been continually blowing up, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that everyone is so passionate and they bring a lot of thought to this. I know there's anxiety. We know there's anxiety out there. The biggest thing all of our coaches want to do, and why they wanted to spend this Monday night with you, was to help, give you a little insight as to how this proposal came about. Why they believe in it, why they believe passionately about it, that they believe passionately about you as student athletes and families, because at the end of the day, if they end up coaching you at their schools, you'd want that passion. You'd want them caring about you and your well-being. So I think that's something, again, to take into advisement, is just remember that this is not malicious intent. It is not trying to overlook a class. It is really trying to calm nerves and trying to make the best experience out of what we all know is extremely challenging times. We don't want to be in this. We want to get out of it as soon as possible, but we're in it, so we're dealing. Before we wrap up, coaches, I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to say, kind of a final thought. You are more than welcome to do that before we kind of give that final, goodbye. I will say, if you did write a question or a comment, we will do our best to answer it and email it out to the group as best we can. But with that, coaches, anyone, any parting words? This is the only time coaches are ever quiet, so maybe take advantage of this situation, everybody. Just throwing that out there. But again, we hope that, we'll continue this dialogue as things come out. We have done our best to try to make sure you're some of the first to know through our IWLCA Connects, through our communication with club coaches. We are trying to make sure that you understand what's happening in the Division 1, 2, and 3 landscape, and NAIA landscape, which is what we cover. So thank you for taking time this evening. This will be recorded. We're going to do our best to have this up in the next 2 days. Don't hold me to that, but I promise we'll try. Thank you to this committee for the hours upon hours of Zoom sessions. I know, because I've been on some of them, and to all the coaches who, again, have been so thoughtful. We definitely, if there's a need for another town hall, we'll do it. So we'll do as many of these as we need to make sure that we are all going through this process together and making it the best it can be. So until we talk again, stay safe out there. And then we'll look forward to seeing you as soon as possible. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.